Hi, Ben with Novolux Stereophonic. In this video, I'm going to be going over restoring the detented click to a Kenwood Supreme Series volume control. I'm going to start by removing all of the knobs so that we can pull the faceplate, and then I can take the whole preamp section and tip it down, and then there should just be one nut on the backside of the volume control to extract it from the chassis. Okay, now I need to desolder every connection on this control and extract it from the chassis. I drew a diagram of all the connections for this the last time I did this control, so I just verified that the diagram's correct, and now I'm going to start pulling all of these wires. The control is now extracted from the chassis, but I need to remove all of these jumpers so that I can disassemble it. The volume control is fully extracted from the chassis, and as you saw, it was a pretty involved process just to get to this stage, but it's about to get even more complicated. So my recommendation is that if you are considering doing this service to the volume control, unless your volume control is seized up or you have a lot of experience with this type of thing, I wouldn't recommend it. These controls are unobtainium. They're really only in a select few Kenwood models, and finding a replacement if you mess up the inside of this control is going to be extremely difficult. The way that this is assembled is there's a long screw that goes all the way through the body of the control and ends up at these nuts in the back. And unfortunately, the part that we need to get to is all the way up here. So really the only way to get to it is to disassemble the entire control one section at a time until you get to the front, repair it, and then rebuild it all the way back. So I'm going to start by removing these screws. All right, that should do it. As you can see, this thing's already starting to become loosey-goosey here. All right, so if we look at the back, that exposes the first element of the control. So there's a little spring nut in here that holds everything together, and this can't be taken apart further until this nut is removed. If I crack this element that's holding this wiper, that could be really bad. So I'm going to try to do this gently. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to extract this because all of the tension from those wings is pushing up against it, making it not be able to slide back up the shaft. So I think what I'll need to do is probably cut in one or two of these teeth so that I can pull this up without damaging this wafer. I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to try with a cutoff wheel. It looks like I might be hitting this shaft, which I don't want to do, so I don't know if this method's going to work. So this is interesting. Where I had kind of weakened this a little bit, I just touched it with my flush cutters, and you can see that tooth is now missing. So I think I can probably now work from this area and maybe try to pry the other teeth back. So working at this a little bit, you can see what I've exposed there. I'm just going to try with the Dremel and just try to go straight down onto it and see if I can just weaken these teeth and come all the way around. So you can see where I've kind of accidentally touched the shaft there. And I can dodge that with the new washer, but I don't want to create any more damage to that inner shaft. Okay, so I've got the point where I can get cutters underneath this, and you can see that this is kind of starting to lose its grip on the shaft, so I'm getting close. There we go. And I don't want any of these metal filings to get onto the surface here, so I'm going to make sure that I lift all of those off carefully and then thoroughly clean this wafer before anything gets reinstalled. Before I start taking the control apart, I want to index it. So I'm going to be rotating it all the way to the right. And you can see the wiper is towards this side because it's easy to get this on 180 degrees backwards. So it's going to be indexed like that when I reconstruct it. So now let's pull off this first piece. This will have the wiper on it. So this is all just pressure fit together. Go. Now, here's this wafer. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take down the entire control and just keep all of these in line and in order so that I know how to put it all back together. Interesting. Take a look at this. So my memory was wrong on this. The section with the detents is actually the third section of the control. So I've gotten down to where the gear is here and where this ball section would be. And I've never seen one this intact, because usually the ones that are broken, I think what happens is this amber colored material just turns to dust and eventually falls out of the control. So this is almost the fully intact piece that would have been installed here that establishes the click. So I'm going to try to put a couple things together and see how this thing originally looked inside. So I've never seen this before. I always assumed this was a ball, or that there was a ball made out of plastic, because this is all that I've found, like particles of this stuff inside of the control. So this is my first time seeing that there's actually a piece of metal in here. So my guess is this was somehow sitting in here and maybe held this in place. Maybe it was a structure suspending this in the middle, something like that maybe. Yeah, it could have been something like this, suspending that in the middle. Okay, if we look here, it looks like you can see that this little spring section here has these bends in it, and I think that metal piece must have sat in there vertically, and then the plastic must have been in here, kind of putting pressure against the back of it so it can't fall out. Just for kicks, I'm going to try to stick that piece back in there and see what happens. The most likely thing that's going to happen here is there's going to be some spring tension on this, and it's going to launch this little piece halfway across the room. So I'm glad I'm documenting this on video so that we all know what this thing, what this thing looks like that would have originally been in here. Okay, so I'm getting close to shoving this thing in. I just put it in on this side and kind of moved it across. So let's see if I can dip it into position. I think that's it right there. So let's see what happens when we spin this. So you can see kind of how the action would work, but it doesn't feel strong enough. Those plastic pieces must have applied some back pressure here. Something like this. Let's see what this feels like. That doesn't even spin. Yeah, it must have been, oh, there we go. So if I just put a little bit of pressure on this spring, you can now even hear it. So that must have been what it was, is those little plastic pieces putting pressure on the back here so that you get that click. So, like I said, this is my first time seeing this control with all of the stuff that was inside fully intact. So in the past, I've put a ball bearing in here and just used the existing tension to solve that. So I'm going to try to shove a little ball in there and see what happens. If not, I might try to come up with a way that I can get this original little metal piece to stay in there, but I'm afraid that it might pop back out at some point. So let's see what we can figure out. I'm going to start with a 2mm ball and see if this fits in. And the idea is that there's like a little slit in here that was for the cylindrical portion of that device, and I think the ball just kind of balances in there, and there's enough spring tension that it can stick it up against the gear here. So I'm going to try to insert this ball kind of like I did the other one by bringing it in from this side, just rotating it into place. So it's sitting in there, but I don't think it's going to be big enough. Let's see what it does. So it fundamentally works, but you can almost feel no detent. It's actually pretty smooth. It's a nice feel, like from the front. I can feel just like a little bit of vibration on it, but it's not that satisfying click that you would get. So let me go one size up on the ball and see what that does. So this one will be 2.5mm. This is a stainless steel. That's pretty satisfying. It's definitely more of a click than the original, as you can see how close it is to that supporting piece there, where the original piece was just relying on that back pressure. But this I think is acceptable, because you're going to get the same detent, you know, as you would with the original metal cylinder that was in there. But it just feels, it doesn't feel crunchy. It takes more effort to turn. Let me screw the knob on and see what it feels like once you have that big rotational force on the front of it. Ooh, that feels nice. It seems like it makes less noise going in one direction than the other. On the clockwise rotation, it's a little bit noisier, it's a little smoother and nicer going counterclockwise. Let's see, let's look at it here. It might just be the way that the gear is made, where it kind of smoothly goes over in the counterclockwise direction. But it gives you that little tick in the clockwise. In any case, I think that's the correct size. And that should work. And I think that ball really doesn't have a danger of popping out because it's held in by those little pieces. So I think that'll do the trick. We can clean all the wafers and reassemble this thing. So I'm going to spin it all the way to the right, where we had it indexed to start. And then I just build from my little stash here backwards. So as I go, I'm going to take the opportunity to clean up these wafers a little bit. You can see kind of the dirt and stuff that's accumulated on the carbon there. So I'll start out with 99.9% isopropyl and just clean it. The cotton swab. All right, that's looking much better. Now these are carbon, well, you can see the debris that's kind of coming off of there onto the cotton swab. But the carbon elements on the side here don't make contact with anything. These are basically little resistors that are all around the edge here. And then this is where the actual wiper comes in and makes contact with the carbon element. So this is a really high quality control. I don't need to lubricate anything on the outside here, but I like to put a little bit of Deoxit F100 on this inner ring here. So that's I usually use this F100L with the applicator. Just put a little bit here, and a fresh cotton swab. And this provides just a little bit of lubrication as the wiper makes its way around this track. And then for the other section of the control, I'm just going to clean up this inner ring. This is where this little piece here makes contact. So I'll just lightly clean this. And again, you can see all the stuff that's coming off there. And then on this one, this is a metal on metal contact, so I use the D100L applicator and just put a little bit right in here. And this cleans and protects this ring. Then again, with a little bit of red deoxit residue on there, I can come back Just hit these. Before I put that ring on, I want to make sure that everything is working properly. I'm going to hook up a couple of meters and just test this. So I'll start here. This is the balance control portion. Yeah, that makes a little more sense. So both the same at center. And then we have about 90K in short. And yeah, that looks fine. And then we can do this. There we go, and this should be going to be the opposite. Okay, so the balance section seems fine. I'm now hooked up on one half of the volume control, and we can see something's a little bit weird on this meter. Right side seems fine, but I'm not making good contact on this side. Let's see if we just put some pressure on the shaft. Let's see, which one is this? This is this first wafer. I need to disassemble this and get back in here and make sure I've got good contact on this wafer. So I think I've got this worked out. It's looking much better, and this is tracking really, really well. And what it ended up being, I think, was this little piece on the inside of that wafer needed to get retensioned, so I just shoved this plastic tool in here and just tensioned this back up so that it makes better contact with that internal ring, because I was getting intermittent contact somewhere. So that seems corrected now. I'll retension these remaining ones, rebuild the rest of the control, and then do the full test again. Yeah, that's looking good. Pretty nice tracking too. Let's go to the loudness tab. Looks fine. and then just the back wafers. This rear one is not going to have the greatest tension yet. It looks like it's fine. Go to the other side. All right, so with that original retention washer destroyed, I need to come up with something else. So on the last control that I did, I used this kit, and these are the two baggies that were open, so it's one of these two sizes. I can't remember which one. That seems about right, this 2.5 millimeter one. So the idea is that we want this to push down and keep it so that the this gear can't come back over the top. So let's see if we can get this on here. So I'm just going to use my favorite 45-degree pliers and see if I can get this to push on. What I don't want to do is slip and crack this wafer. Yeah, that's tough. This is a 3/16 nut driver, and this should allow me to get equal pressure down on this without putting pressure on the actual wafer. I don't know, is that working? I definitely have it started on there. It's getting stuck on there, but there's still a gap there. I'd like to close that up. So I think I'm just going to push this shaft straight up against the bench and then push this down. And this is where putting it in a vise or a drill press might be the best. I think I got it. Give it a little tug here. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. All right, I'm going to put the back piece on and then just do the ohms check one more time before I load this back into the amp. Feels good. Let's redo that ohm check. Okay, let's see if I got all of the connections correct. I'm going to power up on dim bulb. I'm on the auxiliary input. Looks like we've got a signal coming up. That's the control maxed out, and I've got left and right channels overlaid. I'll do the balance here. So the channel tracking is extremely good. Balance is working right, so I got that wired correctly. Yeah, the channel tracking on this is really, really good. I think it was better than when I started. So maybe just getting a thorough cleaning on all those wafers. Look at that, the channel tracking is excellent. Cool. So now I can put the faceplate back on, mount the knob, and we'll see how everything feels once it's all back together. Okay, the big knob is back in place. Let's see how it feels. Oh yeah, that's nice. Ooh, counterclockwise is super smooth. It's kind of nice actually. So in the clockwise position, you can see it kind of snaps into each detent, and you could approach your listening level pretty well. And then if you need to quickly lower the volume, it can come down super smooth, super fast. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. This is one of the coolest features of these big Kenwoods is the feel of that detented control. So I was glad I was able to restore it on this one. One word of caution, if you're thinking about opening up your control and trying to tackle this type of modification, just proceed with extreme caution. The volume control used in these units is super specific. It was really only used in these Supreme units, and it's very hard to get. You can really only come across one if somebody's parting out one of these units, and it would be a shame to see one of these beautiful Kenwoods basically taken out of commission due to a damaged control. So just proceed with extreme caution and make sure that you have the proper experience, technical knowledge, and tools to pull off this rebuild if you're going to try to attempt it. Thank you so much for coming by the channel to check out this video on the restoration of the click on the Kenwood Model 600 volume control. If you like this content, I encourage you to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.